That's the exigencies of President Washington. Kellyanne Conway, we got a couple seconds left, so I'll give you the last word. Your bet on tonight. Go ahead.
Sure, I think Trump is casting himself
just watch this
underestimated.
Republican debate. Provide commentary live if I can.
And he hovers right
As
here,
I'm
even
watching
if he's not here. I would
Kellyanne
recommend
Conway and
what
Carl
would you do differently in the Trump
That's what
debate, or what
we
would
need
you
in this moment in
say,
time.
just with a different style? Is there
And
something for
2023
war,
/ getting rid of
Ukraine,
24
crime, economy? Give us something
The
different.
Chief of the line.
Kellyanne, thank you, appreciate it. Carl Roll, thank you very much. Good luck to Dana Perino. Brett, thank you. Good luck to Dana and to the others. Thanks for watching, folks. Second Republican primary debate starts right now.
High in the hills of California's Simi Valley stands a monument to one of the most beloved leaders in our nation's history.
They're putting a lot of emphasis on Ronald Reagan at the
The
moment.
great
But
communicator
watch
of
their
America's
commentary,
48th commander
their
in chief.
questions, their answers on immigration policy. Ronald Reagan was pretty much straight up open border. You're not going to find that at all.
Peace through strength.
I can discuss whether or not they actually want to convey that to them.
40 years after Reagan's landslide re-election, the Republican Party faces critical questions. What does it mean to be conservative? California to chart a new path for the Grand Old Party. Now is the time.
What's so great about it? What's so old about it? I know it's formally related to the 50s. Look at that party over.
Welcome to the Second Republican Debate in the 2024 primary, live from the Ronald Reagan Presidential Library.
No, I'm not going to recreate a British accent.
We're inside the spectacular Air Force One Pavilion, where the stage is set for a showdown. I'm Stuart Varney of Fox Business, and I am thrilled to be sitting alongside my co-moderators, Fox News Channel Dana Perino and Ilian Calderon, Univision. Good evening.
I'm going to miss there.
Thank you,
Stuart.
Stuart.
Swing and
President Reagan famously described America as a shining city on a hill. And tonight, 7 candidates
Well,
will
was
make
it
the
ever?
case they should be the one to lead that city into a brighter tomorrow. But first, they have to convince you, the voter. Please allow me to welcome our Spanish-speaking audience. Muy buenas noches a todos. Desde la Biblioteca Presidencial Ronald Reagan, los precandidatos republicanos también buscan su voto para las primarias del partido. Bienvenidos.
And good evening. So let's meet the candidates who have qualified and chosen to be on this stage tonight. They are
And
positioned
chosen
by
because
the
someone
order they
decided
rank
not.
in the polls, with the highest polling candidate in the middle. Standing center stage, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis.
a small speck of mine right now. Look at that. See, I'm showing it to you. The baby runs with cake.
It's South Carolina Senator Tim Scott. And former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie.
They're raining a lot.
On the wings tonight, former Vice President Mike Pence. And North Dakota Governor Doug Burgum.
Let's go. Lord, let's go.
Issues important to primary voters. Candidates get 1 minute to answer and 30 seconds to respond if singled out. When their time runs out, we'll all hear this.
They're not going to listen to
We
that.
have a lot of ground to cover, so please keep it civilized.
They're not
Let's
going
get
to
going.
be civilized.
We are in this spacious, sunny place tonight, designed to reflect the very nature and character of Ronald Reagan. It's a place that makes you proud to be an American.
Yet today our nation is drowning in division and instability.
4 say they dread the 2024 election and find politics exhausting. 2 in 3 Americans
Better
think
than
the
starting with
country
the first
is on
question
the
of
road
rich
track.
man north of rich.
And 3 in 4 say the economy is not in good shape.
Prices are up 18% since 2020. More than half of the US population has little access to childcare.
They don't want to fix that.
85% of Americans say their personal finances are a source of stress.
Americans
They
want
want
to
to fix
believe
that
what
by
the
having
earth
not
says.
85%.
You can follow me. I've got you. Don't worry. President Biden is trying to do that with Bidenomics.
And yesterday, he joined the picket lines where auto workers are demanding
This has been a
more wages
showmanship
and
aspect,
job
but-
security. Senator
Hey, you're not
Scott,
gonna see the other
you
guys
recently
doing it, but you're not necessarily gonna give them 100
Ronald
points.
Reagan for firing air traffic controllers in the 1980s, saying, "You
So like
strike,
Doug
you're
Cornell West
fired."
was also there.
Would you fire thousands of striking auto workers today, Senator?
Obviously, the President of the United States cannot fire anybody in the private sector. However, we should look back at the first bill in Congress under Joe Biden. The first bill had $86 billion for the union pensions because they continue to overpromise yet underdeliver. One of the challenges that we have in the current negotiations is that they want 4-day French work weeks, but more money. They want more benefits, working fewer hours. That is simply not going to stand. I sat in the finance committee
That's a matter of
when a
opinion.
bill came before the committee whose promised pensions coming from the unions, $4,000 a month. Unfortunately, it had been cut to $1,000. Southern border because it is.
By the way, guys, there is a nice spread here. I'm Mike, eating 1, 2, 3, possibly 4 little fajita burrito type mixes.
Because of fentanyl. It is devastating. Every county in America is now a border county.
What are you gonna do beyond just
Fentanyl is
proposing to ban
devastating
fentanyl?
Americans in every
It's already
single
banned.
state. I will also
So what else
say
can you do?
6 million
Increase
illegal
the police
crossings since Joe Biden.
This is gonna get more people killed.
And he eliminated Title 42. The one thing he should do is finish the wall.
Well, Trump used Title 42. Biden used 42.
And get the job done.
Well, I can promise you that we are going to have a lot of questions on the border and immigration. But in the meantime, we do want to talk about the economy and jobs, and especially want to talk about this strike for just a moment more. Mr. Ramaswamy, you said you really empathize with the strikers.
Mr. Pump and Dump himself. Let's see what he says about
What he said, or
strikers.
do you think he's wrong?
I agree with some of what he said, for sure. I like the spirit of it. I'll say that I don't have a lot of patience for the union bosses. I think that's where he and I actually have a common view. I do
He's
have a
chief
lot of sympathy
capitalist
for
here.
the workers. Hardship growing up. My father stared down layoffs at GE under Jack Welch's tenure at the GE plant in Evendale, Ohio. My mom had to work overtime in nursing homes in Southwest Ohio to make ends meet and pay off our home loan. So I understand that hardship is not a choice.
Get a lot of loans, don't you?
But victimhood is a choice. And we choose to be victorious in the United States of America. You know, I'll give advice
I
to
really
those
don't like
voters.
that concept
I would
that
say
you
go
choose
in front of
victimhood
the
when you're
White
made
House in
victims by
Washington,
circumstances
D.C.
outside
That's
of your
where
control.
protest needs to be. Disastrous economic policies that have driven up prices, that have driven up interest rates.
This is
and
a farmer,
mortgage
bro.
rates. At the same time, wages remaining stagnant. What we need is to deliver economic growth in this country. Unlock American energy. Drill, frack, burn
That doesn't
coal,
increase
embrace
wages.
nuclear energy. Put people back to work by no longer paying
We're already
them for
near
money to
full
stay
employment.
home.
It's not even
Stabilize
4%
the US
again.
dollar itself and rescind a majority of those unconstitutional federal regulations that are
Name one.
hampering our economy. That is how we unleash American exceptionalism. And that's not a Democratic vision or a Republican
Our exception is not
vision.
being
That is an
able to
American
make
vision that
this
we
economy
embrace
work
economic
for
growth.
everybody.
And capitalism is still the best system known to man to lift us
It's an
up
inferior
from poverty. And we should not apologize for it. That's what it means
Who
to be
says
American.
apologize? Just fix it.
Together, The CEOs of General Motors, Ford, and Stellantis made 336 times.
Honest to God, I hadn't even
record
heard of
the
Stellantis
number
until this
of rank-and-file workers. That's just part of a wider income inequality trend in the country. The richest 1% now controls 1/5 of all income. Vice President Pence, last
That's
week you
just
said
income, that's not
you
wealth, that's
side
just
with
the
American
income.
workers, but you also support how these companies operate. Which is it?
Well, thank you for the question. I want to thank Univision and Fox
This
Business
is his
for setting
sin.
such a wonderful forum.
This is him orbiting around the question and I get
Joe
it.
Biden doesn't belong on a picket line. He belongs on the unemployment line.
Oh, that was catchy in your.
Look, I'm from the second largest manufacturing state in the country per capita. I was governor of the state of Indiana. We brought 12,000 factories back to America during our administration. I know something about manufacturing. And I got to tell you, while
Why is he leaning over?
bosses are talking about class warfare and talking about disparity in wages, I have to tell you, I really believe what's driving that is Bidenomics is fake. Wages are not keeping up with inflation. Auto workers and all American workers are feeling it. Families are struggling in this economy. And Joe Biden's Green
They were
New
struggling in the
Deal
Trump
agenda is good for Beijing and bad for Detroit. We ought to repeal the Green New Deal, get rid of the mandates and subsidies that are driving.
How do you repeal the Green New
gasoline,
Deal when the Green New Deal was never
into
instituted?
the graveyard? And beyond that also, as President of the United States, I'll be standing with workers all across America, and
Yeah,
I'll be
they're
standing
now.
for the right to work of every American to
How about the right to
join
strike?
a union or not join a union as they decide.
Senator Scott, you have mentioned, will you care to respond?
Pro-capital, not pro-labor.
That Joe Biden needs to be fired. That's why I'm running for president. I look forward to being the next president of the United States. I'll also say, I know America can do for anyone what she's done for me. It's why we're focusing on restoring
Here we
hope,
go.
creating opportunities, and protecting the America we all love. Growing up in a single
What do we
household,
love about
I
it, though?
wondered if the American dream would work for a kid in the inner city. I've got good news for every single child, whether you're in the inner cities of Chicago or the
He
rural
gay?
parts of Iowa. America and the dream, it is alive, it is well, and it is healthy. God bless these
We'll have to provide
United
comment
States
on
of
that.
America.
I think we need to look at exactly what happened. Biden showed up on that
She
picket
makes
line.
an appearance for
But
the
why are
first
those
time.
workers actually there? It's because of all of the spending that he has pushed through in the economy that's raised the inflation. So
Not
when you look at
positively
the fact
correlated at all.
that we are paying higher gas prices, higher grocery prices, $7,000 more a year for families. What we need to do is I came out with an economic plan, eliminate the gas and diesel tax so that they have more money in their pocket. Let's focus on going after middle America and cutting taxes for middle America.
Down
and
the street,
collapsing those
The
brackets.
gas is about
Let's get rid of unfair
$3.48.
distortions
What
like
she
the
did
state
is
and
just
local
knock it down
tax
to about
that they
$3.10.
give to wealthy people and
Is that gonna save a lot in your pocket?
And paid by red states.
Not
And
enough
let's
that you'll
make sure
notice.
we make the small business taxes permanent. They only made those temporary. They made the corporate taxes permanent. Let's focus on what it takes to get more cash in
Are
the
you trying to
pockets
fight
of
for
workers.
corporate taxes?
That's when we'll be able to deal with
Are you fighting
strikes like
for it?
this, not sitting
Or
on a
for
picket
more
line
elimination?
like Joe Biden is.
Thank you, Laura. Okay, we have other questions to get to about economy. Allow me to,
I'm sorry.
allow me to.
I'm sorry, I have to jump in because we're missing the point and every other network is missing the point. The
Wow.
reason why people are striking.
The North
in
Dakota
Detroit
guy
is
cut
because
off the
Joe
hose.
Biden's
That's not gonna help out.
interference with
He
capital
might fall
markets and
from
with free markets.
0.5%
The
down to
subsidies, we're
0.1.
subsidizing the automakers and we're subsidizing the cars and a particular kind of car, not every car. We're subsidizing electric vehicles. And when you decide that we're going to take all of your taxpayer monies,
We literally
give $1 billion,
subsidized the entire car
subsidize a
industry in
certain type of
2000.
vehicle, and the batteries come from China. China controls 85%.
That's the reason why
of the minerals.
Tesla,
They're
Elon
rare
Musk
earths
is
because they're
so
measured
rich
in
is
parts
because
per
of
million.
government subsidy.
China is moving 100,000 pounds of earth in Indonesia, in Africa. They're literally destroying the planet so
Colonize-
that we can make a battery.
We know a thing or
that's
two
in
about
car
that, don't we?
subsidized here. That's why they're striking, because they need 2/3 less workers to build an electric car. Joe Biden, this strike is at Joe Biden's feet.
As if electrical cars wouldn't exist in a Republican administration.
Economy, but allow me to the follow question to Governor Christie. The government will shut down if Congress does not reach a deal by the end of this week. Vice President Pence warns that politics of, quote, Trump's
These two cats, your words.
holidays, like Mr. Ramaswamy, are a road
No
to
comments.
ruin for the GOP. If the government shuts down,
Christy's
should
leaning in
voters
like he
blame
can't hear it
populist
at all.
Republicans?
Voters are blaming everybody who's in Washington, D.C. They get sent down there to do the job, and they've been failing at doing the job for
His
a
hair
very
wasn't
long
even
time.
like that with the
And
last
let's be honest about this with the voters. You know, during the Trump administration, they had
Slight
$7 trillion,
raspiness to his voice.
$7 trillion in national debt. And then the Biden administration had put another $5 trillion on and counting. They have failed, and they're in the spot they're in now because none of them are willing to tell the truth. None of them are willing to take on the difficult issues. They just want to keep kicking the
What
can
makes you
down the
think
road.
Chris
And the
Christie is
inflation
gonna
that you
tackle
spoke
the big
about
issue?
is absolutely right, and it's caused by
What
government
big issue
spending.
does he want to
And
attack?
that's why people all across this country are suffering tonight. And yet we don't get any answers because Joe Biden hides in his basement and
He
won't
keeps saying
answer as to
his
why he's
basement.
raising the debt the way he's done. And Donald Trump hides behind the walls of his golf clubs and won't show
Is
up
he in his
here
basement on
to
this
answer
picket line?
questions like
I say
all
that's
the
just a
rest of us are up here
political
to answer.
action.
He put $7 trillion on the debt.
Not that he's hiding, but
In this
in some
room
sort of
to answer
basement
those
propped up
questions
by other
for the
people.
people you talk about who are suffering. And if the government closes,
Pointing.
and if the
He's
government
pointing a lot.
closes, it's the blame. It is to the blame of everyone in Washington D.C. who has
Says
failed
the
to
dude
do
who
their
literally
job
shut down a
as
bridge in a
police
city.
The next one should be for Governor DeSantis.
I forgot DeSantis is here. These DC people. I'm Mr. Ford.
Governor DeSantis, you haven't spoken, please.
The people in Washington are shutting down the American dream with their reckless behavior. They borrowed,
The
they printed,
American
they
dream
spent, and now
previously
you're
exist.
paying more for everything. They are the reason for that. They have shut down our national sovereignty by allowing our border to be wide open. So please spare me the crocodile tears for these people. They need to change
Pretty cool
what's
title.
going on. Where's Joe Biden? He's completely missing in action from leadership.
Missing in
And you know
action.
who else
It's
is
literally
missing in
everything. Look,
action?
you're trying to hit him from
Trump is
multiple
missing in
sides.
action. He should be on this stage tonight.
Sure.
He owes it to you.
Oh, that's a bad move, bro.
It's probably a bad move for DeSantis, but he's apparently the only one who wants to swing at the dude's nearest 60%.
That's why.
This is Governor of
That's-
Florida. We cut
that's why.
taxes. We ran surpluses. We've paid down over 25% of our state debt.
Bad
And I
move, bro.
vetoed wasteful spending when it came to
You're
my
about to
desk
go
and as your
away.
president. When they
then
send
you
me a
decided to
bloated
pick a
spending
fight
bill
with
that's going to
Disney.
cause your prices
The
to go up,
boss of the
I'm going to take
Republican
out
Party.
this veto pen and I'm going to send it
Oh,
right
the
back.
veto
That's
pen.
gonna be your pen?
Oh, wow, that was so cute. That was cute. That was so cute.
Election that is on the minds of a lot of moms and dads and Americans, and I know that you've been thinking about it because childcare costs, they are up. They're topping $10,000 per month.
Mm.
Some families are spending
Wow.
half of their
Yeah,
income
childcare is a
on
joke.
childcare, and they're having to decide: is it
That's
worth it
more
for me
than
to work?
people's job
Does not
income.
make sense
Well,
for me
you're thinking when you
financially.
don't have any
In
paid
3 days,
leave.
the billions of dollars in pandemic era
Then you have
funding
to do
is going
childcare.
to end, and 70,000 daycares could close. So you had an effort to broaden
Oh, it's a
eligibility for
child.
childcare services. That fell apart last year. And for the moms and dads out there who are worried, what can
I'm
you
just
tell
saying.
them if you weren't able to get it through the Congress?
You watching?
How could you do it as president?
So one of the things I did as a member of Congress was to make sure that we protected the Head Start programs around the country, giving people the opportunity to pick and choose the places.
Is that
they
the only
send
thing he likes is
the
Head Start?
challenges that
That's
we
the
see
question.
today under the
How about
Biden
12
administration
How about
is that
that?
the cost for daycare has gone
Then you wouldn't
over
have to do childcare.
$15,000 per child.
Oh,
And the
they
Build
leave.
Back Broker Plan, he called it the Build Back Better Plan, it
Child
was going up to $29,000. The way we fix that problem is to make sure that we actually cut taxes and give more
Oh, cut
Americans their money
taxes
back.
for
always cut
childcare
taxes.
instead of giving 12 weeks paid leave so they can stay home with their kids.
If the
Always
child care is
taxes.
$10,000 a
For
month,
dual-income
and you're gonna get
households,
cut tax,
60%.
it'll
Then
wait
we
and save
replaced
you
it
50
for-
How is that
the
gonna
child
save you?
tax fund and made it
The
refundable.
child tax
Doing
credit
that,
is not
more
working.
parents have more
You have to
resources
give
to make
motherfuckers
decisions
the
how to
ability-
take care of their family.
Sorry.
The one thing
I
we should
apologize
do
to
is
the
let the
listening.
American
You have to
people
give the American
keep
people
their money.
12
When that
weeks paid
happens,
leave so they
the
can stay home
greatest
with their
opportunities
kids
rise from the ashes.
like every other industrialized nation in the
Go ahead.
planet.
You're going to the border.
And so the tech versus businesses.
I think this artificial division is unhelpful.
Well, this clown had to say.
The real divide is not between the Republicans on this stage. And in the Reagan Library, I want to say these are good people on this stage.
Is it because it's the Reagan Library? Is that why he wants to say
this?
that?
In this country who love the
Because he
United
wasn't saying
States
that
of
in the last
America
debate.
and share our founding ideals.
I should not
Free
take
speech,
anything about it.
meritocracy. The idea you
Yeah, I
get
don't
in this
think
country
at all.
on the color of
He's
your
definitely
skin,
He's trying to
on the
get
content
into
of
a
your
vibe.
characters, and the fringe
But Trump's already got it.
Did you publish
that has a
it?
chokehold
Do not
over
start
that
using
party.
fucking
That's the
murder.
real divide. So this
We
It's
have
so
consideration
infuriating.
and the border.
It's so infuriating. You do not believe in anything you believe in.
No, no.
You believe in nothing you believe in. And yet you are sitting here quoting them.
We have all these questions. We're gonna get to you. We're gonna come back to
And
you.
he
There's a lot of
addressed the
questions.
issue. Exactly. Thank you.
We knew that the cliff was
Let-
coming.
let the
We knew
Joker
that there was gonna be millions of
He
people.
does
out,
so
and so
much
guess
better
what?
He is the Joker.
Okay.
Hold on.
We passed legislation
Sir, we will
Childcare
get you some questions, but you're gonna have to let us move on. We are going to the board.
They're not administrative.
No, sir,
Oh, they're not gonna talk about child care anymore? They're not gonna talk about child care. They're on the border. We're gonna discuss most people in the world. Okay. Okay. No one gives a shit about job fucking border. Okay.
Amnesty for those who have put down roots and who've lived here, even though some time back they may have entered illegally.
No, he didn't. He's an
President
American.
Reagan granted
He likes
amnesty
the
to
work.
nearly
He likes the
3
employee.
million
That's why.
immigrants, something
That's
no
the word.
Democrat or Republican president has done since. Governor Christie, as governor of a non-border state in 2010, you supported a path to citizenship. But when you ran for president in 2016, you flipped, saying immigrants should be tracked like FedEx packages. Would you stand now on a path
That's
to
bold.
citizenship
I like the
for
question.
11 million of undocumented immigrants?
Well, the problem is that since no one has done anything since we first had this discussion 13 years ago, we're not in a position to be able to do any of that anymore. What we have to do now is first treat this like the law enforcement problem it is. Our laws are being broken every day at the southern border, every day. And Joe Biden and his crew is doing nothing about enforcing that law.
How many people
They
come
are
over the
letting it
border?
go. And by the way, they announced
We now go live to the
race.
first Scots.
They're letting it go. And
Grayscale.
we need to
How
have
many
a
people came
president
over the border
who
with
acts like
Trump?
I did as governor.
Grayscale.
Enforce
And then you went
the
around
law
that.
And he goes
first
back.
and foremost. And that means what I'll do on day one is sign an executive order to send the National Guard.
How many consecutive presidents have said on their day one they will do something? Famously, Barack Obama, executive order to close Gitmo. Guess what's still open? Gitmo is.
In here in this country to fill the 6 million vacant jobs we have, but only if you come here to follow the law and only if you come here legally. If you come here illegally, we will apprehend you and we will send you back across the border from which you came.
That's
And the
for
fact
everybody.
is that until we
Yeah,
set
you
a
have to
law
get
and order agenda in this country,
Look,
in
Canadians,
the future,
Australians,
we won't be
Russians,
able to continue this.
French
And I'll
people,
say
English
this,
people,
Donald Trump failed on this as well. He said he was
Cubans.
a wall across
But they're
the border.
open
He
amnesty.
put 52 miles
Oh
of
my
walls
God.
that Mexico
Remember
would
the
pay
Biden
for.
administration
Guess what?
was
I think if
the
Mexico
ones
knew
whipping
that
Haitians
he's
as
only
they
going to
crossed.
build 52 miles, they might have paid
Haitians
for
can't
52
come in, but
miles.
Cubans have full amnesty.
Governor Haley.
Okay.
Most illegal immigrants are coming from countries south of the border. You've seen the Fox News drone that's captured the steady stream of people coming into the country on a daily basis. In fact, I believe we have a live picture of it tonight that is happening right now.
Okay. Good
In the
point.
last decade, the U.S. has spent nearly $55 billion to address the root causes of migration. But crime, poverty, and corruption, they persist, and the number of
In
migrants
America or just in
is only
Mexico?
growing. Are we wasting
I don't think
our
they're
money?
even caring about crime
But
and
what
poverty in
happens is
Mexico.
when Joe Biden
That has nothing to
raised
do
the
with
green
them.
flag, it
That's
told everybody to
Canadian,
come. And now we've seen 6
coming in
million
the
people
fifth.
across the border. We've had
I like
more
how she
that
feels that
have
question
killed
of
Americans
creating
in Iraq,
immigrants was
Vietnam, or Afghanistan.
That's old
wars
school. That's good
combined.
1920s,
We need to
30s
make
and
sure
shit,
we
bro.
are a country of laws.
Good
The
1940s
second we
shit.
stop being a country of laws, we give up everything this
Oh,
country
you
was
country
founded
of
on.
laws.
So we have to
Oh,
secure the
my
border.
God.
The way we do that is, first of all, defund sanctuary cities. You see
Oh
what's
my
happening in
God.
Philadelphia right now. It's got
Sanctuary
to stop.
cities
We need to
again.
make sure we put
So,
25,000
you're gonna
more
remove
Border
what?
Patrol and ICE agents
Education
on the ground
funding?
and let
You're gonna
them
move
do their job.
infrastructure
I spent
funding in these
$400
cities?
at that border.
They're literally
Every time
American
the Border Patrol
areas.
agents aren't allowed to do their job.
The
Let's go
sanctuary
back to
city.
remain in Mexico policy. Instead of catch and release, let's go to catch and deport.
Oh,
And
same
let's
shit,
do it.
right? Nothing has changed
The
since
federal
20 years.
taxpayers are paying to deal with the root causes. It's not
Literally
working.
a much
The
more
only
authoritarian
aid that
group
we
than
should
what
be
Reagan
spending
was
right
on
now
this
is to
particular
secure
map.
the border. the southern border, the
Secure the
northern
border.
period.
Secure the
We need to
border.
keep
Not
Americans
stop
safe.
creating
And
people
right
to
now,
come from the
Americans are not
border.
Only when we fix the
In
immigration
the country
system,
of
only when
love
we
and
get the
peace
border
and
secure,
freedom
should
with all
we
our
ever
military
look at
bases.
putting
We're
any
not
more money into
creating
this.
peace and
Our
freedom
money
building.
should be about keeping Americans safe. We're not doing that. Joe Biden's not doing that. And you mentioned Congress and shutting down
What
government.
did she
I'll
do?
make it clear. We have to change the budget process
Nothing.
in 4
Absolutely nothing.
years. In 40 years. Congress has only delivered a budget on time 4 times in 40 years. If
And
they
we
don't
still
keep
somehow
it,
get
who's to
by.
blame for that?
Paid. No pay, no budget. That's the way.
Who's to blame for that? Republicans and Democrats. Because you're playing politics with the fucking lives of American people.
In Latin America just last year, they signed strategic partnerships with 7 countries, including Mexico.
Oh,
And China's
BRICS.
military ties to the region now include
This
arms sales and training exercises.
Yeah, let's have
Are you comfortable with China deepening ties with our southern neighbors?
Of course not. And the reason why we're in this mess is because elites in DC for far too long have chosen surrender
Yeah, he's
over
the
strength
Congress.
when it comes to the CCP. Some people in our country
He's a
got
former
rich.
congressman.
Our industrial base got
I see,
power,
like,
and
he's
they have been able to build the
on
second
little
most
House of
powerful
Representatives.
military in the entire
I think
world.
a 3
We
term.
need a totally new
Trying to
approach
seem like he's
China.
outside of
We are going to
DC.
have real hard
He doesn't
power
act like
Just 'cause
in
he's
the
governor
Pacific,
now.
like Reagan,
He doesn't
to
act like
deter
one. He acts
their
like he's an
ambitions.
idiot.
We're going to have economic
I don't know
independence
if
from
that's
China, where we're decoupling our economy. We are going to go after the cultural power.
Oh
that
my
this
God,
country
that's
is.
cultural
Governor
power.
Florida,
Kennedy's cultural.
I banned the CCP from buying land.
You
in
wanted
our
to be
state.
a
We should
cultural
do that
one, don't
all
you?
across
It's the only
He's
way
a-
you're gonna
he's a
try to-
prettier Ted Cruz. He's not that good.
Confucius Institutes. So
That's pretty.
you see a country in decline.
Ted Cruz is
our
ugly.
power's
He's
in
nicer
decline.
looking.
China's going to surpass us
Global,
this decade, and if they
Yeah.
do that, that's going
Can't
to
all
affect
be
every
me,
single American
Not
household.
you
As your
or
president,
Brad
I
Pitt.
do
He
not
was
feel
saying
that
that.
happen.
He's
I'm going
not.
to reverse this country's
He's not.
decline. We are going to choose
Because he's
strength,
pleasing
not
all the
surrender
time.
when it
He's
comes to the
just
CCP.
nice to look at him. CCP. It hasn't been a CCP since 1990.
Everything's got to be like some sort of Cold War.
No shit, right? I thought we ended that years ago. CCP hasn't been in existence since 1990. What the fuck are you talking
The
about?
Chinese Communist
Will you expel U.S. citizens?
So the first thing I
You mean the
want
most
to say is
capitalist fucking government on the face of the
Republicans
earth?
on the right side of this issue. Militarize
Yeah.
the southern
Where all our
border,
iPhones and
sack
Samsungs and all that type of shit.
and
And
end
this nigga's
foreign
not
aid
talking
to
about
Mexico and Central America to end incentives to
Sure.
cut costs.
For
But I
those
do
who
go
are
a step further. You're right about that, Elia.
This
I
gentleman is
think
not
we're ending
speaking.
birthright citizenship for the kids of illegal.
Didn't he, this motherfucker get birthright citizenship being here?
About the
Yeah, I don't
Constitution
know.
and the
He
14th
did.
Amendment.
His family was immigrants. He came here and they fucking got birthed here.
Is that all
Oh,
persons
my
born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the laws and jurisdiction thereof are citizens. So nobody believes that the kid of a Mexican diplomat in this country enjoys birthright citizenship. Not a judge or legal scholar in this country will disagree with me on that. Well, if the kid of a Mexican diplomat doesn't enjoy birthright citizenship, then neither does the kid of an illegal migrant who broke the law to come
What do you
here.
mean neither?
And as the father
That's not
of
what
2
the law
sons,
says.
it is hard for me
The
to
father
look
of
them
your
in the
fucking
eye
family
and
was on
say,
a
"You
visa
have
when
to
they had
follow
you
the
here?
law."
Are you
When
fucking
our own
serious?
government fails to follow its
They
own
anchor
laws.
babied you,
That's
and you
how
gonna
we
sit up
go
here and say that
distance
shit?
and
I
solve
need to
this
verify
problem
this.
and restore the rule of law in the
His
United States
parents
of America.
came over here
Because
on a
that is
fucking
part of
visa.
what it even means to be an American.
And he was born here on a fucking visa. They anchor babied this motherfucker. And he has the audacity to say shit like that?
Two Indian Hindu immigrant parents in 1985.
Yeah. Thanks to the Civil Rights Act, by the way. Applaud me, applaud my people for that. You wouldn't even got here for that. You got the audacity to come
Support for argument is something I can't tell you. But from a perspective of the Constitution, I think it's simple that clearly it was designed for slavery and not for illegal immigration. I'll go one step further though. When we have a conversation about the things that are happening on this stage, we think about the fact that Vivek just said we were all good people, and I appreciate that because last debate
Are they?
he said we were all bought and paid for. And I thought about that for a little while and said, you know,
Going
I can't
swinging.
imagine how you could
Finally,
say
he enters the
you were
race.
just
Come on,
in
Timmy.
business with the Chinese Communist Party and the same people that funded Hunter Biden millions of dollars was a partner of yours as well.
He dropping haymakers. He dropping haymakers.
Who are tainted by a broken system. It's not the fault of anybody.
He's a farmer, bro. He's one of the systems.
Get out of here, Timmy.
Speaking while I interrupt.
You said
Yeah, this is typical apostle. No one wants to hear from you, Sam. You're a clown. That's why they're talking to you. You're below Babbitt Tsunami.
I actually agree with Ron DeSantis.
Speak at the same time, no one can understand.
Exactly. So if I may,
That's a good
I
point.
agree with Ron DeSantis on China. When every other CEO expanded into the Chinese market, you know what I did with my first company? We opened a subsidiary in China. But you know what I did that was
So you also were
different
Stubbs.
than every other company?
Yeah.
We got the hell out of there. And when I
So you
started
followed the rain and got.
Why'd you even go if you didn't like
What he
him?
said, but that was stupid. That was dumb. That was dumb.
Excuse me, to compete against BlackRock, I made a commitment that we would never do business in China. And I will say something.
I think you have more than time to explain your point.
Well, if I was interrupted by a lot of people.
No, you don't. No, fuck off.
But I do not
Yeah.
believe in these. We're sitting here in the Reagan Library.
Yes, I wish you
In honor of Ronald Reagan's library, if I may, from one admirer of Ronald
Listen,
Reagan.
That's what
bro,
all they do.
chill the fuck out, bro.
This is the reduction in the volume of his balloon. Yeah, what's going on, DeSantis?
Policy debate. And the right answer is we need to declare independence from China.
Give her the question, girl.
Vice President Pence, in 2017, the Trump-Pence administration canceled DACA, which put the legal status of 600,000 dreamers in the hands of the courts.
I didn't know this was not on the face. Okay.
As president, if the Supreme Court ends DACA, would you work with Congress to reach a permanent solution for dreamers?
Well, first, let me say I'm glad Vivek pulled out of his business deal in 2018 in China. That must have been about the time you decided to start voting in presidential elections.
Yo!
So, let me speak to this. Number one, I negotiated a Remain in Mexico policy with the Mexican government. We use economic power to bring.
Why are you trying to say America's the shining city on a hill if you don't want anyone to go to the shining city in the hill?
We reduced illegal immigration and asylum abuse by 90%. And as president of the United States, I can do it again. And the truth is, we need to fix a broken immigration system, and I'll do that as well. But first and foremost, a nation without borders is not a nation. And we have to secure the southern
Or is that
border
the
of the
city on
United
it?
States of America. I know how.
Did something happen?
Congress in 2006, right after Hurricane Katrina. Dana, you remember it. We stood.
That was in 2005.
I led House Conservatives. We cut $100 billion out of the federal budget.
That's not a good thing at a time when you needed
As I said
federal
last night,
money.
I'll say again, this is no time for on-the-job training. I'm going to be ready on day one to get Congress to step up, secure the southern border of the United States, build a military.
Why not the northern border, sir?
And we're going to get spending in Washington, D.C. under control.
Look at Doug Burgum in the back with his hand raised.
$2 trillion.
Well, one of them was the F-35. All right, we're about to have a commercial break. We remain live here on SchezzWho's episode 4. I'm getting ready to mute the TV, though.
Hi, I'm Amanda.
My scooter broke down. I went into
Back in 1 second, folks. I'm going to mute.
Pretty sad.
All right, folks, I'll be back in 1 second. I'll keep the camera running, but I'll be back to the seat in just 1 second. And unmute TV.
The more you mention each other, that means if you have questions, you're going to get. Okay, so I want to talk about crime. This has been a horrendous problem in our country with the Fox News and others
It's
have
always
covered
been a
it.
problem.
Governor Christie, crime in major cities is striking fear into the hearts of Americans. Just last night, looters took over the streets of Philadelphia. You said in the last debate that you would use U.S. attorneys to prosecute crimes local prosecutors won't, but they are stretched as well, and they could not handle all of the lawlessness, the shoplifting, all the carjackings, the armed robberies. They're all surging. Progressive prosecutors were elected by their constituents, and they can't be fired by a president. So what would you do to end the revolving door of criminality?
Fix the economy top to bottom.
The only one on the stage who's done it. For 7 years, I ran the 5th largest office in this country at the U.S. Attorney's Office in New Jersey, and we set records for the number of prosecutions that we brought that still have not been broken. And the reason was that we went after the crime that was affecting people's lives. And as president, I will appoint an attorney general and instruct that attorney general that you are to put all the resources that are necessary to bring our cities back under control. The fact is, they will be stretched. There's no doubt about that, but that's what they take the job for, because they love the idea of enforcing the law. We've got to bring law and order back to this country, and not just in our cities, but we need law and order back everywhere. We need law and order back in our suburbs. People are threatened there. We need it in our rural areas. People feel
You want to be
threatened there.
president.
And we need it in Washington,
Would be
D.C.
the
also.
empire.
And Donald
What
Trump
about
should be
the
here
law
to
and
answer
order
for that, but he's not.
of
And I want to look at
American
the camera right now and
imperialism?
tell you, Donald, I know you're watching. You can't help yourself. I know you're watching, okay? And you're not here tonight, not because of polls and not because of your indictments. You're not here tonight because you're afraid of being on this stage and defending your record. You're ducking these things. And let me tell you what's going to happen. You keep doing that,
I like that
no one
challenge.
up here is going to call you Donald Trump anymore. We're going to call you Donald Duck.
All right. I want to DeSantis, you fired a couple of
I don't know about that
prosecutors
one.
in your state, but as governor,
That's a
and
weak
vice
joke.
president,
It's
you
a weak
have the
joke.
ability to do that. How do you think about dealing with the root causes of crime, especially this revolving door of the criminals that just get out and come back and commit another crime?
Well, the crime in these cities is one of the strongest signs of the decaying of America. We can't be successful as a country if people aren't even safe to live in places like Los Angeles and San Francisco. Just being in Southern California over the last couple of days, my wife and I have met 3 people who have been mugged on the street, and that would have never happened 10 or 20 years ago.
People were mugged 10 and 20 years ago, dude.
We support the men and women of law enforcement. They are keeping us safe. We have a 50-year low. In the
If they
crime
are
rate.
keeping us
And yes,
safe, why are you
2
complaining about a crime
progressive
problem?
prosecutors that weren't following the law in Florida, I removed them from their posts, and the people of Florida are safer as a result of it. As president, I will use the Justice Department to bring civil rights cases against all of those left-wing Soros-funded prosecutors. We're not going to let them get away with it anymore.
Why
We
is
want to
Soros
reverse
always
this
the
country's
main side?
decline. We need to choose law and order over rioting and disorder.
On a related subject,
fake smile.
Haley, there's a nationwide policing shortage. Retirements are up, recruitment is in the tank, morale is at a record low. 3 years ago, you signed a pledge to support law enforcement. Now, pledges are a nice idea, but what's your actual plan to get more police on our streets?
Well, and I actually did it in South Carolina too. You know, what we knew in South Carolina was you take care of those who take care of you. We have to start taking care of law enforcement, but it's not just taking care of them with words. It's making sure that you also follow through on what they do. Right now, we have a lot of stolen guns on the street. Well, these law enforcement officers, they arrest these people and then they go and they're let out the very next day. So law enforcement feels like they don't, no one has
Well,
their
how do you
back.
feel about
We
confiscating
have to
their
start
guns?
prosecuting according to the law. We have to make sure we have the backs of law enforcement, and we have to make sure that we're a country of law and order. But I want to go back to China because
And
I
would
don't
you
think we
increase
spend
their
enough time
salaries?
on that. Right now, we have to look at what government's doing to hurt us against China too. You have a company, U.S. Antibiotics, that produces amoxicillin, the #1 antibiotic that we need. And right now, there's a company in Bristol, Tennessee, that produces that. Yet our
Also in
federal
Bristol,
government
Virginia.
only gets it from China. We need to be focusing on companies that produce in America and supporting those companies that produce in America, not companies that are helping China.
China's always a whipping boy.
Companies using companies in America for drugs. I don't
There
sell
I go. I
drugs.
hear you for the first time.
All of us. Governor Burgum, for the first time ever,
I may not be up
that mass
loud.
shootings
Hope you're enjoying
My
it so
volume
far.
up. Okay, there you go.
important issue for Latino
Yeah,
voters.
it's a little bit difficult to hear, but
Not unique to the United States.
I just hope that there's enough of a sync between what you're watching and what I'm watching that we're hearing the same questions
yeah,
at the same time.
there's a little bit of different in the timing, so that's one reason why I haven't said anything.
Used to be just completely banned.
But at least I hear you now, so it's good. And shoot, as soon as you hear something that is interesting and you want to shoot straight from the hip, that'd be great.
All these cities that we're talking about that showed the videos tonight, they have some of the strictest gun laws in the country. So we know that
I don't
that's
think
not
Doug
what's working.
Burgum knows
What we have to
about
do is
big
get back to
cities.
the core issues about the family. We have to get back to behavioral health and mental health. We've got to get back to actually enforcing the laws.
When you say get back to mental health, are you planning a whole new mental health deal, a whole series of plans, Doug Burgum, that you are going to invest federal money in order to improve mental health, or you would only use it as a catch-all phrase?
Funding the police because they've been attacked in the press. The police have become the bad guys when they're the one. There's all these jobs available in America. Why would you be a policeman if people don't even respect them? Every time
time I see a policeman, the first thing I say is thank you. And so does everybody else in my family. And
I imagine you're around a lot of policemen, so you're going to have to say that a lot.
The people that are out there defending us every single day. Can I answer the question on mass shooting?
Mr. Ramaswamy, according to Customs and Border Protection, about 90% of fentanyl is seized at official border crossings, and 57% of the smugglers are U.S. citizens. How would you stop fentanyl brought into the country, mostly by U.S. citizens, through ports of entry?
There's two sides to this, to be very honest.
These are good questions.
One is we do have to seal that southern border. Building the wall is not enough. They're building cartel-financed tunnels underneath that wall. Semi-trucks
So you
can drive through
shoot down
them.
the
We have to
idea
use
of a
every
wall as
military
you
to
discuss
seal
the
the
idea
keys of the southern
of
border.
wall.
But we also have to be honest. There's a demand-side problem in this country, too. A mental health epidemic. I met family in Iowa. Two parents, Kathy and Derek. They lost their son, Sebastian, 17 years old. He bought Percocet on Snapchat, and then he died. Why did he die? Because it was laced with fentanyl. That is closer to bioterrorism, not a drug overdose. That is poisoning. So it is our job to make sure that never happens. But it's also our job to make sure that 17-year-olds don't turn to Percocet via Snapchat. We have to bring back mental health care in this country. Not with pumping.
What do you mean bring it back and make it seem like it left? It was never that good.
And meaning in the next generation of Americans. Many of them are getting it through social media. And this isn't a Republican point or a Democrat point. But if you're 16 years old or under, you should not be using an addictive social media product, period. This is something that we can.
Well, this is a guy running against Facebook and X.
The mental health of this country while stopping the
very concept of being on it.
People this year than who died on 9/11, and I refuse to be a passive bystander sitting in the White House like the hollowed out husk of a current president we have. We will step up and address this problem to stand for Americans and our children.
That
is why, everything he said, I agree with. That is why, as Commander in Chief, I'm going to use the U.S. military to go after the Mexican drug cartels. They are killing our people.
Dude wants to outright invade
In
Mexico.
Florida, we had an infant, 18
This
months.
is the Republican
Parents rented
Party.
an Airbnb. And
He wouldn't be president long.
the infant was crawling, the toddler
I would
was
hope.
crawling on the carpet and ingested fentanyl residue and died. Are we just going to sit here and let this happen, this carnage happen in our country? I am not going to do that. So I guarantee you on day one, this border is going to be a
Wonder how he's
issue
going to
for me as
stop
president.
child
We're
gun
gonna declare
deaths.
the national emergency. Yes, we'll build the wall. We'll do remain in Mexico.
Or does he
But
not
those
care about
Mexican
that?
drug cartels are going to be treated like the foreign terrorists.
Vice President Pence. Vice President Pence. I'm going to move on. Vice President Pence. Just last month, Vice President Pence, you said if elected, you would repeal all Obamacare mandates. However, you also made that same promise in 2016.
Oh.
And at that time, Trump Pence had congressional majorities for at least the first 2 years. And you did not deliver on that promise. So Obamacare right now, it is
good
more
questions.
popular than ever.
Yes. Keep Obamacare. That's crazy.
Obamacare here to stay.
It's some care is better than no care.
Meat shootings this year, and then I'll answer that question. It's an important one, Dan. Look, I'm someone that believes that justice delayed is justice denied. And as a father of three, as a grandfather of three beautiful little girls, I'm sick and tired of these mass shootings happening in the United States of America. And if I'm president of the United
Address
States,
guns.
I'm going to go to the Congress of the United States, and we're going to pass a federal expedited death penalty for anyone involved in a mass shooting.
That does nothing because most of them die during it
Oh,
anyway.
so now we're gonna kill everybody. Okay.
Yeah.
An eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. Okay. That's biblical.
That's just people going into that thought that they were going to get away with it and not face something like life in prison anyway.
Justice and send a message to these would-be killers that you are
Yeah, but we wouldn't be spending thousands of dollars to keep, to feed them.
But does that mean Obamacare is here to stay?
Well, he's not addressing changing it, so maybe it is here to say at least.
Yes, yes. He didn't even answer the question. I think he got lost.
I think it's one of the choices here. My former running mate, Donald Trump, actually has a plan to start to
Former running mate.
consolidate more power in Washington, D.C., consolidate more power in the executive branch. If I'm president of the United States.
Did he say my former running mate?
He did. He said that. He knows that he knows he's not going to be the vice presidential nominee.
That are rightfully theirs under the 10th Amendment of the Constitution. That means all Obamacare funding, all housing funding, all HHS funding, all of it goes back to the states. We'll shut down the federal Department of Education. We'll allow
How many
states to
consecutive
innovate.
presidential
We're gonna revive
debates
federalism
that are
in America,
Republicans
and states
are people going to
are
mention that they're going to shut down the Department of Education? They need that just as much as
Keep it in their time frame so we can get as many questions in as possible. Especially for Governor DeSantis. Over 26 million Americans don't have insurance coverage. Governor DeSantis.
Me.
2.5 million of them are in your state. That's worse than the national average.
Oh.
Can Americans trust you on this?
Well, I think this is a symptom of our overall economic decline. Everything has gotten more expensive. You see insurance rates.
Healthcare was always being this expensive.
People that are going to get groceries. I spoke with a woman in Iowa, and she said, you know, for the first time in my life, I'm having to take things out of my grocery cart when I get to the checkout line because the total goes up so quickly. So this
You're not addressing healthcare costs,
people
though.
are hurting out there. So we've got to address the underlying problem with Bidenomics, the overspending, taking all
Healthcare
Biden's
costs were
rules
high
and
even
regulations.
before
I'm not
Biden being
throwing them in the
president.
Trash can on day one. You're not going to have to worry about that. We're going to open up all of our energy. We will be energy dominant.
This is unrelated to healthcare.
Lower gas prices. And what we need to do with healthcare is recognize our healthcare is putting patients at the back of the bus. We have big pharma, big insurance, and big government, and we need to tackle that and have more power for the people and the doctor-patient relationship.
Why is your record in Florida on insurance worse than the national average?
Why are they hitting him twice?
We've got a lot of folks that come.
I had thought Fox was trying to prop up
We also
DeSantis.
don't have a lot of welfare benefits in Florida. You know, we're basically saying we want to, this is a field of dreams. You can do well in the state, but we're not going to be like California and have massive numbers of people on government programs without work requirements. We believe you work and you got to do that. And so that goes for all the welfare benefits. And you know what that's done, Stuart? Our unemployment rate is
What does
the
it say
lowest
about the
amongst
jobs
any
that you
big
want them to
state.
get?
We have the highest
If on the
GDP
job
growth
that you
of
want
any
them to
big
get,
state, and even
they also
CNBC,
still need that
no
government
fan
assistance.
of mine,
It means it's
Florida the
really
number
low
one
pay.
economy in America.
First of all, how can we be the best country in the world and have the most expensive health care in the world?
That's a good
We
point.
have an issue. My mom was in the hospital, and when she was in the hospital, they tried to bring her a couple of Tylenol, and she said, "I don't need it." And they said, "Honey, go ahead and take it because you're paying for it anyway." Why is it that when we got the bill, the insurance company in the hospital negotiated the bill for her without her having anything to do with it? When I am president, we will break all of it, from the
The
insurance
problem was
company to the
capitalism there?
hospitals, to the doctor's offices, to the PBMs, to the pharmaceutical companies. We will make it all transparent, because when you do that, you realize that's what the problem is. Second thing is you've got to deal with tort law. The doctors don't give you the 10 tests because they want to. It's because of the 90% chance they'll get sued. And then we need to bring competition back to healthcare, get rid of certificate of need systems, and make sure that they can compete. We have to put the patient in the driver's seat. They've been in the back
Trump
seat for
did
way too long.
attempt to
And once
pass
we
a
give the
healthcare
patient
bill.
the
Why
ability
wasn't
to
this in it?
decide their health care, deciding which plan they want, that is when we will see magic happen. But we're going to have to make every part of the industry open up and show us where their warts are, because they all have them, and we need to fix this on behalf of the American people.
How about make it free at point of service and expand Medicare to all persons?
We're not talking about the real problem ever. We talk about why we have the most expensive healthcare in the world. It's because the federal government got involved the same way they did with EVs, and they said, we're going to subsidize a particular kind of software back in 2008 under Obama, and they said, hey, we're going to do this. It's going to make everyone productive. All of you that are watching have been to a doctor's office, and the doctor's got his back to you and their hands on a keyboard. The
the only industry in the world that's ever absorbed $1 trillion of IT and became less productive. They saw less patients per day is U.S. healthcare because they were subsidizing a certain kind of technology. It wasn't about improving healthcare. It was about picking winners and losers. Every time the federal government's
Who's
involved,
the
whether it's
loser?
higher education, healthcare, or now the auto
Who's the
industry,
winner?
things get more
Certainly no
expensive.
winner. If the American public can't afford to do
We're
this.
going to move on the future of education in America. What's the government's role in finding a way forward? The second Republican debate rolls on from Simi Valley.
All right, going to mute the television here.
And we're doing a good enough job teaching our children what America is and what she represents in the long history of the world.
All right, so I'm muting the television, so it's just me speaking for the moment. I would like to throw it over to Ms. Payne, though. Would you like to, during the commercial break, just give a little bit of a spiel for what you're running for at the moment? I think you're still muted.
Hi, I'm Myra Payne. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay. Hi, I'm Myra Payne from Virginia Beach, and I am running for Senate in the 19th District, which is the southeast part of Virginia Beach and Chesapeake, along the border of the North Carolina, down to the North Carolina border, all the way over to the Dismal Swamp. That is the southeast corner of Virginia.
How's it been so far out there on the campaign trail?
Oh, it hasn't been too bad. There's a lot still to do. Right now, I try to go back and forth between Virginia Beach and Chesapeake, but we've done a lot of canvassing in Chesapeake and Virginia Beach, and now we are also giving out voter guides at the early voting, because early voting started on last Friday and will continue until the 4th of November. And election day, of course, is the 7th of November. And so I'm hoping that people will come out to vote early and get it done, because we never know what election day is. And of course, we know that last Friday was
Bit of a storm.
rainy. So yeah, so people should get out and vote while they can when the weather is clear, which should be for the next couple of days, even though it's going to be windy and cloudy.
It'll feel more like autumn.
Yes, it's a definitely fall feeling, and the weather is really, to me, very comfortable, and it's a good time to canvass. So if you are available to canvass, come out on Saturday. We'll be in Bell's Mills in Chesapeake, which is that's one of the districts, or one of the precincts. Bell's Mills. It's near the Dismal Swamp, though.
I've never been out by the Dismal Swamp. It always sounded like a great place to. I think there's a refuge shoot there too, to visit and just see the scenery. Seems like a great place to visit.
The Dismal Swamp is has several different locations you can see, but it has a very interesting history, and they just moved a schoolhouse, a one-room schoolhouse, near one of the sites, and they're getting ready to do some more. Chesapeake Parks and Recreation is going to do some more areas so that it's a little more convenient and to see part of the swamp. There's also activities that happen at the swamp almost every weekend, and so it's a good place. And a lot of times there's runs, there's bike rides, there's all kinds of activities.
It's pretty cool. I don't know how much more time we have on this particular commercial break, but I will like, perhaps on the next commercial break, you to give us a little bit about your campaign, what you're running on policy-wise, things that you're really interested in.
Okay.
And also just sort of bring that same zeal to this debate, because it seems like it's really, I like that they're jabbing that a lot at each other.
Right.
Who do you think is winning so far?
I don't know. I just think that it's odd. It's quite odd to me that the issues that the way they discuss them as if some of these things haven't been tried. And I think it's easy to say what you're going to do, but the reality is when you get in the position, it's what you actually do that's important. So, I guess whoever has the best stories right now is, I don't really think any of them. I think that when Pence said my former running mate had a plan, I I thought that ended it ended my faith in him. It should. I mean, it almost sounded like he was promoting Donald Trump, and I was like, no. I mean, it just. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like I said, quite odd to me.
Well, let's see. The oddity picked up. They're back from commercial now. I think they're going to talk about education.
And even the current expansion won't be fully implemented until 2027. Parents can't wait 4 years for a fix. So what would you do right now?
Well, school choice isn't the only answer, but I'll tell you, it's not out of a lack of trying that we didn't try and get school choice in South Carolina. What I'll tell you, first of all,
They have some sort of belief that school choice is the be-all and end-all to improve
are not proficient in reading or math. Over 80% of our 8th graders aren't proficient in history or civics. And recently they came out and said our 12 and 13-year-olds are scoring at the lowest levels they've been scoring in reading and math in decades. So the first thing we've got to do is we've got to make sure we catch our kids back up. We have to make sure they can read. A child that can't read by 3rd grade is 4 times less likely to graduate high school. We need to do reading remediation. We need complete transparency in the classroom. No parent should ever wonder what's being said or taught to their child in the classroom. We need to make sure that we have school choice so that there's competition. We need to put all the
parental
programs from
rights.
federal government down to the states and let states decide what education looks like in their states. And we need to start building things in America again. Let's put
I like how you make it seem like education will look different from state to state. Education is the same regardless of whether or not you choose to talk about something.
That's when we'll start to see a difference. But we've got to get parents back included. We've got to quit spending time.
They've
on
always
this
had an
DEI
ability
and
to be
CRT
included.
And instead focus on financial literacy, on digital literacy, and on making sure that our kids know what they need to do to have the jobs of the next generation.
On the subject of education, a question for Governor Christie. Students in your state are getting high marks on their report cards, but minorities are not doing well with math and reading. Black and Hispanic students averaging 29 points lower than white students in New Jersey. Would you address minorities first?
You have to address all students. And look, in our state, Stuart, frankly, before I was governor, that gap was close to 50%. And what we did was institute more charter schools and more Renaissance schools and more public school choice in New Jersey with innovative solutions in cities like Camden, where now we took what was the worst school district in America during my time, and we have now increased that by nearly 40% in terms of their proficiency. It can be done.
What did you do to do it?
But let's tell the truth to everybody about what this is. This public school system is no longer run by the public. It is run by the teachers' unions in this country.
Who are people and part of the public.
And her crew are absolutely straggling. They're taking the worst of their members and defending them rather than advocating for our kids.
It sounds like how we treat the police
unions.
unions.
Sleeping with a member of the teachers union, there is no chance that you can take the stranglehold away from the teachers union every day. They have an advocate inside the White House every day for the worst of their teachers, not for our students to be the best they can be. Our president of the United States is to take on the teachers union. I did it in New Jersey, and I will do it as president of the United States.
Sounds like it's against the apparatus of education.
I have a question for you. Governor, I have a question for you. Florida's new Black History curriculum says, quote, slaves develop skills which in some instances could be applied for their personal benefit. You have
He's
said
asking excellent
slaves
questions.
develop skills in spite of slavery, not because of it. But many are still hurt. For the sentence of slaves, this is personal. What is your message to them?
So first of all, that's a hoax that was perpetrated
Nope,
by Kamala
false.
Harris.
Mm-mm.
We are not going to do that. Second of all, that was written by descendants of slaves. These are great Black history scholars. So we need to stop playing these games. Here's the deal. Our country's education system is in decline because it's focused on indoctrination, denying parents' rights. Florida represents the revival of American education. We're ranked #1 in the nation in education by U.S. News and World Report. My wife and I, we have a 6, 5, and 3-year-old.
U.S. News and World Report.
We didn't just talk about universal school choice. We enacted universal school choice. We didn't just talk about Parents' Bill of Rights. We enacted the Parents' Bill of Rights. We eliminated critical race theory, and we now have American civics and the Constitution in our schools in a really big way, just like President Reagan asked for in his farewell address back in 1989. Florida is showing how it's done. We're standing with parents, and our kids are benefiting.
You always raise new standards. What is your message for Governor DeSantis?
She doesn't like it.
There is not a redeeming quality in slavery. He and Kamala should have just taken the one sentence out. America has suffered because of slavery, but we've overcome that. We are the greatest nation on earth because we put our demons in the mirror and made a decision.
We created the demons.
That all the issues, you talk about crime and education and healthcare, we always think that those issues go back to slavery. Here's the challenge though. Black families survived slavery. We survived poll taxes and literacy tests. We survived discrimination being woven into the law.
Would DeSantis even want to teach this?
And so we survived it. So what do you want to go back to it?
Money.
Exactly.
Or they decided to take the black father out of the household to get a check in the mail, and you can now measure that in unemployment, in crime, in devastation. If you want to restore hope, you've got to restore the family, restore capitalism, and put Americans back at work together.
Buzzword. It's like Rick Santorum.
Our nation continues to go in the right direction. It's why I can say I have been discriminated against, but America is not a racist country. Never, ever doubt who we are. We are the greatest country on God's green earth. And frankly, the
Literally
city
down
on
the
the hill needs a brand new leader. And I'm asking for your vote.
I'm going to have a question for you, Mr. Ramaswamy. Over 10.7 million students in over 18,000 public schools nationwide have the ability to change their identity without parental notification. Governor Christie told Stewart last week that he would pass a federal law to protect parental rights. Would you try to do the same?
I have to be very clear about this. Transgenderism, especially in kids, is a mental health disorder. We have to acknowledge the truth of that for what it is.
You're going to step on hot coals here.
Early in this campaign,
On parental rights in school.
parents have the right to know. And you know what the hypocrisy of this is? Even New Hampshire failed to actually get past a piece of legislation here. The very people who say that this increases the risk of suicide are also the ones saying that parents don't have the right to know about that increased risk of suicide. And I'm sorry, it is not compassionate to affirm a kid's confusion. That is not compassion, that is cruelty. I met 2 young women, Chloe and Katie, early in this campaign, who are in their 20s and now regret getting double mastectomies. Never have children. And the fact that we allowed that to happen in this country is barbaric. So I will ban genital mutilation or chemical castration under the age, and parents have absolutely
Would you
the
try to
right.
pass a federal law that says parents should have that right?
We are going to require states absolutely have to follow that through.
So he's not, yeah, he's actually being federal.
In your state, you do not have a law that says parents can't be notified. When you want to be president, would you try to pass a federal law to say parents have that right?
I think this is a state's issue, but I do want to say something, because all night long we've been talking about issues about how it's broken in Washington, and I respect all of the people on the stage here for their 100+ years of public service. Thank you. But the reason why we're not talking about education or healthcare or safety being a problem in North Dakota is because we have a business leader. I've got more experience as a business leader than I think this whole group combined. I know I've created more jobs than everybody else on stage, thousands of high-paying jobs that have real meaning. So as a business leader, you come in and you treat the taxpayer like a customer. So in North Dakota, instead of fighting
Taxpayers
with the
aren't
teachers
customers, they're
union,
buying
we
something
also
that's worth
create a
greater than
K-12
taxes.
coordinating council. Everybody gets in the room and the customer is
But
the
you do
student.
understand that this is an issue that many people in America really are concerned about, worried about parents and notification.
Yeah,
and
but
Yes, that's
I
what-
don't want to turn Virginia into North Dakota. I've been to North Dakota.
not the Department of Education.
It's a
Virginia Beach has a greater population than North Dakota.
Instead of like, oh, here's a choice school and here's an old school.
That's what he was talking about, North Dakota, right?
Every school in North Dakota, innovation school, every school got off from under the red tape.
What does it even mean an innovation
the
school?
values that we're trying to get, like 4-H. Like
Yeah, but they also have a large Native American population that gets special services and don't have to, I don't know, they don't have the tax base.
Security warns that violence against LGBTQ plus people is on the rise and intensifying. According to a recent study, members of that community are 9 times
She's
more
the
likely
ultimate
to
person to
commit
ask
acts of
this because she's the
violence
most
and violence.
religious of them all.
As president, how will you protect this community from violent attacks and discrimination?
Well, as President of the United States, I'll stand up for the safety and the civil liberties of every American from every background.
What civil liberties are you going to deny?
But I want to answer the question as well, Dana, that you just asked up, Bert. Because by way of full disclosure,
Why do you keep trying to answer somebody else's question?
my
Stick to your question.
Skip
Answer
it.
your question good.
Wants to get into something he'd like to talk about earlier, but they didn't address them. So he will avoid her question to answer that one.
Look, education is a state and local function. The state of Indiana had one of the very first school choice programs in the country. And when I was governor of the state of Indiana, we doubled it. And as to your question, Dana, let's be very, very clear. When the Linn-Mark Community Schools in Iowa had a policy where you had to have a permission slip from your parents to get a Tylenol, but you could get a gender transition plan without notifying your parents. I weighed in with a foundation. That's not bad policy. That's crazy. We're going to stand up for the rights of parents, and we're going to pass a federal ban on transgender chemical or surgical surgery anywhere in the country. We've got to protect our kids from this radical gender ideology agenda. We've got to empower parents.
It is a radical religion.
With the ability to choose where the kids go to school, whether it's public, private, parochial, or homeschool. You empower parents, and our schools will straighten up and reflect our values and focus on the basics faster than you could possibly imagine.
Next subject.
I don't agree with that, but what did you say? Chemical, surgical.
Lose time. China is investing heavily in their tech
Back to China again.
$280 billion every year on semiconductor research and development. That is 1 CHIPS Act per year. Governor DeSantis, you say companies like Google and Meta have too much power. Doesn't going after them give China an edge?
No, I think you look at how our societies develop, they have a huge amount of power over our society. They've cracked down on free speech. We're not saying you don't want them to do business, but you want it to be a free market. And right now they're monopolies. But this issue of China, I think, is really going to be fundamental. We have subcontracted out so much of our national needs to the CCP. We rely on them for a whole host of issues. We need to reshore and we need to decouple all those important industries. We need to get that back in the United States. They are a top geopolitical adversary by a country mile. Xi Jinping's got huge ambitions, not only in the Asia Pacific, but as you mentioned earlier, in our region. But ultimately, we've got to beat them on the economy. And so that's what we'll do as President of the United States.
Governor Christie, I wanted to follow up on this because 22% of American workers fear their jobs will be lost to a robot. And you said in the past that the free market is the way to go. Would you retrain workers to use the job of artificial intelligence and to do what?
Well, look, what I think artificial intelligence offers is an extraordinary opportunity to expand well beyond the productivity that we have, and to have Americans be able to be involved in that revolution, Dana. You know, each time we have shown incredible innovation and progress in this country. What we've done with it is to expand all kinds of new, even unthought of opportunities for folks. Yes, we have to do retraining for folks who lose some of their jobs, and we should be doing that.
Their jobs are about to be replaced by robots.
College level and the local level for people to be able to access it. So yes, I would be in favor of that. But this is a much bigger issue than that. We can't be afraid of innovation. America has been the great innovator of this world. over the last 250 years, a technological innovator, a manufacturing innovator, and a freedom and governmental
For each great
innovator.
innovation
And that's
creates
why
more
America has to
efficiency,
continue
which
to stand
reduces the
strong in
need
the world,
for human
pro
labor.
innovation, pro progress. And I will tell you this, as President of the United States, what I will do is to make sure that every innovator in this country gets the government help its back and out of its pocket so that it can innovate and bring great new inventions to our country that will make everybody's lives better.
Mr. Ramaswamy, TikTok is banned on government-issued devices because of its ties to the Chinese government.
So it's China.
Yet he joined TikTok after dinner with boxer and influencer Jimmy Paul.
Wow.
Should the commander-in-chief be so easily persuaded by influencer?
The answer is I have a radical idea for the Republican Party. We need to win elections. And part of how we win elections is reaching the next generation.
Why do we make mills out to be underdogs?
So when I get into office, I'm going to kids under the age of 16 should not be using addictive social media. We're only going to ever get to declaring independence from China if we actually win. So while the Democrats are running rampant, reaching the next generation 3-1, there's exactly one person in the Republican Party which talks a big game about reaching young people, and that's me. And let me level with all of you. I'm the new guy here, and so I know I have to earn your trust. You see a young man who's in a bit of a hurry, maybe a little ambitious, bit of a
Maybe a little.
And he can tell you that I don't know it. I will listen. I will have the best people, the best
think he even listens
in
to
this
questions.
country, whatever age they are, advising me. We will be probably many of the people on this stage included. That's how I build my companies. I want to be challenged. I want people who
The great
disagree with
former
me.
bro who
That's what
pumped
makes
and dumped
America
his way to a
great.
fortune.
It's not a perfect nation. We're founded on the pursuit of perfection. That is what makes America great. And that is why we will end it once we win this election.
I have to jump in there. I'm sorry.
This is infuriating.
If it fun, sure.
One of the most dangerous
Oh, here comes
social media apps that we can have. And what you got, I honestly, every time I hear you, I feel a little bit dumber for what you say.
Oh!
I can't believe
They pulled the Billy Madison out.
What they're doing is 150 million people are on TikTok. That means they can get your contacts, they can get your financial information, they can get your emails, they can get your text messages.
As if our current technology isn't stealing that.
Exactly what they're
This
doing.
is very
And what we think is you've gone and you've made China go make medicine in China, not America. You think I want kids to go and get on the social media that's dangerous?
Nikki does not like him at all.
With the Chinese that gave Hunter Biden $5 million, we can't trust you.
Whoa.
We can't have TikTok.
15 seconds.
15 seconds, Mr. Ramaswamy.
I think we would be better served as a Republican Party if we're not sitting here hurling personal insults and actually have a legitimate debate about policy.
Really? They can't wait to vote for Donald Trump. He is a walking personal insult.
I believe in these people. These are good people on the stage that disagree. Let's have a legitimate disagreement. That's what I would say.
He doesn't actually legitimately disagree with me.
Sir, we'll have to cut him like that. I don't want to do that. I don't.
So Governor DeSantis, let me go to you. Experts say President Putin has ordered assassinations across Europe, cheated on arms control treaties with the U.S., and seeks to work with China to force our decline. President Reagan believed that if
Seem
you
like
want to
Russians kind of like
prevent
each
a
other
war,
that much.
you better be prepared to fight one. Today, the Republican Party is at odds over aid to Ukraine. The price tag so far is $76 billion. But is it in our best interest to degrade Russian military for less than 5% of what we pay annually on defense, especially when there are no U.S. soldiers in the fight?
It's in our interest to end this war. And that's what I will do as president. We are not going to have a blank check. We will not have U.S. troops.
We're not
We're gonna
a
make
party
the
to the
Europeans
fighting of
do what
this
they need to do.
war. We're
But they
providing
spend
some
money
weapons.
to pay,
But that's not going to
bureaucrats'
stop either side from just deciding
and funding
to put
small
down
businesses
those
halfway around the world. Meanwhile, our own country is being invaded. We don't even have control of our own territory. We have got to defend the American people.
It's not a military
before we worry about
invasion.
all these other things. I watch these guys in Washington, D.C., And they don't care about the American people. They don't care about the fentanyl deaths. They don't care about the communities being overrun because of this border. They don't care about the Mexican drug cartels. So as Commander-in-Chief, I will defend this country's sovereignty.
It's not a territory.
What's his name?
May have
80% of the resources that we send over to Ukraine is guaranteed as a loan. It is not 90% of the money that we send over there. It's not, well, we can talk about this, but at the end of the day, 90% of the money that we send over there is actually a loan. It's not actually not being paid for Ukraine, it's paid by the NATO and their allies.
So I think it's what's happening.
I think it's a conversation. I will say, let's debate the fact that our national vital interest is in degrading the Russian military. By degrading the Russian military, we actually keep our homeland safer.
I personally like that goal, but I want to know why it's national interest for that to happen, because that uses the military on us as
Look forward to this one. So at the end of the day, when you think about the fact that you want to keep American troops at home, the attack on NATO territory will bring us and our troops in. By degrading the Russian military, we reduce, if not eliminate, an attack on NATO territory.
We have to level with the American people. We have to level with the American people on this issue. The reality is just because Putin is not Putin's an evil dictator does not mean that Ukraine is good. This is a country that has banned 11 opposition parties. That is not true. We're driving Russia.
Hyperbaric oxygen therapy.
There is this constant need that China and Russia to make them this great boogeyman that leads our entire century to
Condition.
Reasonable peace
Landing.
Especially this is a country whose president just last week was hailing Putin have Ukraine that's a green light to China to take Taiwan. These comes to strength.
They just waited to unyield that Reagan line.
Landing.
First 2 years have brought China, Russia, and Iran closer together. On Ukraine, and not enough.
It is an hour and 21 minutes for them to mention Iran.
They're all connected. The Chinese are paying
Real
for
property tax.
the Iranians.
Rate of increase.
And so are the North Koreans now as well, with the encouragement of the
Chesapeake
Chinese.
City local government authority require analysis of water, public air quality.
People want to go and talk to Putin. Guess what? So did George W. Bush. So did Barack Obama.
Virginia retirement, law enforcement officers, commanding bodies, healthcare coverage premium payments for certain service members.
And the fact of the matter is,
For certain service members.
that the Chinese-Russian alliance is something we have to fight against, and we are not going to solve it by going over and cuddling up to Vladimir Putin. Look, Donald Trump said Vladimir Putin was brilliant and a great
The
leader.
current military affairs healthcare insurance premiums for members of the Virginia National Guard provides that the individual shall have the power to pay the employee a portion of the health care bills for any member of the National Guard procedures. The record of payments and to report annually to the Secretary of Defense all such payments made. This bill
When the Soviet Union fell,
summary.
have to put the old band back together, and only America can stop it. And when I'm president, we will.
That's the biggest thing the military-industrial complex needs is the Soviet Union type adversary.
Congress approved, enacted the General Assembly. Enacted by the General Assembly of Virginia that the Code of Virginia amend by adding a sections for benefits of called active duty healthcare premiums.
Farmers and ranchers from that kind of retaliation from a foreign government like China?
Well, first of all, we've got the best farmers and ranchers in the world right here in America. If they have a level playing field, they can outcompete anyone in the world. But this is part of the larger issue that we're talking about here, which is we're in a Cold War with China. The Biden administration won't admit that. We're also in an economic war.
through what we're doing with agriculture and energy, and we're also in a war with them relative to cyber war. We get attacked every day in North Dakota, every state, every school district, our tribes, all being attacked every day by either China, Russia, Iran, or North Korea. And now we've got a Biden administration whose whole policy is appeasement. They're out there, creating the world, making less than $6
Giving
billion.
$10
They
billion
traded for 5
in
people.
war
They just now
weaponry.
set a
We're
price
thinking of
on anyone's head
appeasement.
who's a tourist from America, who's a student from America, for kidnapping. If you want more kidnapping, put a price on it. And then and they're also helping Iran get to have more and closer to nuclear weapon, which pushes all of the Middle East closer to China.
Six. This is not it.
And then, of course, we're going to give Ukraine to Russia, and then we're going to give Taiwan to China. You think that's a foreign policy?
It's not ours to give away. It's not ours to keep
less
either.
successful, make us more poor.
Sponsor.
Policy, because China imports 10 million barrels of oil a day. They're the largest importer in the world, and we've had 4 cabinet members
Three.
this summer, and none of them talked about U.S. energy.
Crap.
Each of those
Okay.
carry
Vortex.
the folly of the climate is making the world stable with empowering dictators. It's not about climate change that we need to worry about. It's about the Biden climate policies.
Payments for certain service members.
Practice that a lot.
Supports
Healthcare premiums.
carry into the country, quote, scoundrels. Mexico is the United States' most important trade partner in border security. You said you will send special operations to attack the cartels in Mexico. So, this means boots on the ground, strikes.
It means special operations. It's how we deal with our terrorists. And what you need to do is understand that Mexico's not being a good partner. If we lost 75,000 Americans last year, Mexico's not
General
being
laws and technology and substitute.
Do you know how many we have lost to not being able to afford health care?
For public safety.
take out.
Block vote passage.
Corporations will take out anything that's doing it, but we're gonna go after China.
Vote,
Because China
block
is
vote
sending us
passage.
fentanyl in the first place. And we will end all normal trade relations until China stops sending fentanyl. And then we'll do the special operations and we'll get it from both sides. This is where President Trump went wrong. He focused on trade with China. He didn't focus on the fact that they were buying up our farmland. He didn't focus on the fact that they were killing Americans. He didn't focus on the fact that they were stealing $600 billion in intellectual property. He didn't focus on the fact that they put a spy base off our shores in Cuba. They didn't focus enough on the fact that all of our law enforcement drones in America are Chinese, and we've got all these little surveillance cells. We need to start focusing on what keeps Americans safe. That hasn't happened in a long time. As your president, I will make sure every American is safe, and we'll do whatever it takes to make that happen.
Keep saying that they're going to make sure safety happens. But we're unsafe even amongst ourselves.
Auditioning for the job as president of the United States, you want to earn these votes. But the world's problems land in the Oval Office. During the presidential debate in the year 2000, neither Al Gore nor George W. Bush were about Al-Qaeda. Yet, just 1 year later, Al-Qaeda's attack on September 11th claimed nearly 3,000 lives. And the farther we get from September 11th, the closer we are to September 10th. Senator Scott, you have no executive branch experience. What has prepared you to protect the nation from a major man-made national security crisis?
One of the things I've had the
Nobody
is serving on committees in the United States Senate, like the Senate Armed Services Committee, along the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, also the Finance Committee, and the Banking Committee. Talk about addressing the issue of fentanyl. I've written the legislation, passed it through the Banking Committee and the Senate that would freeze the assets and sanction the accounts of the Mexican cartels. There are weapons that we have within the arsenal that I was able to get past.
I wonder what you would do if you did that for gun manufacturers there. Freezing their accounts for the violence that they wrought.
If you look at the details before 9/11, there was information and intelligence that was available that suggested an attack was coming. Having the right intelligence partners with us is key to making sure that we prevent the next 9/11 from ever happening. Having that experience for the last 10 years is really important in getting the job done.
30 seconds to you, Mr. Pence.
Well, I think you have a question about executive experience, and I think it's vitally important. And I stand before you today as candidate for president because I think this country's in a lot of trouble. And you hear the fire on the stage tonight. You hear fire in all of our voices. It's because Joe Biden has weakened this country at home and abroad. This is a time for those of us that have the experience, the tested experience, and the commitment to the conservative agenda that Ronald Reagan brought forward in this party of a strong national defense, standing with our allies, standing up to our enemies, supporting limited government and traditional values, need to step forward because, frankly, our party does face a time for choosing, as they said at the top of this debate.
Dude's trying to rip Reagan off.
On the foundation of that conservative agenda that Ronald Reagan forward, or whether we're going to follow the siren song of populism unmoored the conservative principles. I'm the most experienced, most qualified, and most consistent conservative in this field, and I'm ready to lead America at home and abroad on day one.
Time for choosing to go to break.
I like there's like 2 or 3 collapse after all that.
Then any of these candidates to receive, we'll pick that up when the debate continues.
All right, we're going into a commercial from that. So, Ms. Payne, I'm starting to think here that the balloon that is the popularity of Vivek is going to be reduced after this. It seems like a lot more punches are landing on him in this. Do you think that might also be true?
That the balloon, I'm sorry.
The support of Vivek is it's like it's popped. It's like they all want to gang up on him. Do you think that after the end of this, he might fall a little bit in the polls?
Who? Biden? President Biden?
Vivek Ramaswamy.
Or who? Oh, I'm not sure. I don't, because I'm not part of that, rhetoric, I don't think it matters. And yeah, he may fall in the polls after this, but I think that's what this is for.
Points are going to fall, and Trump will just get more.
Yeah, I think this is what this is for, and this is the good thing that brings out and shows people, the American people, who these people are and what they're about, and that's what this debate is about: is to learn more about the candidates. And I think that's what we're seeing, is we're learning more about the candidates. And so now I get to talk about me as a candidate in District 19. Yeah. So the things that I'm concerned about are pretty much some of the same things that they're concerned about. Mm-hmm. One thing, though, that I would like to say is to the Democrats and to the Republicans of the 19th district, and to the all of Virginia, that this district has been held by a Republican for probably the last 50 years. There's I can't find not one Democrat that's been elected. So this makes this a really red district. However, this is the problem. Even in the last 4 years, and the last year especially, the person who retired was John Cosgrove. You can look up his record. Last year, he spent his time writing bills to accommodate people, and to the tune of 8 different either deaths, memorials, or something like that. That's what he spent his time on. And I don't know if that was to raise money or to help his campaign, but basically, I think he spent the year thanking people instead of doing making laws, which is what our job really is. The other thing that I have noticed is even the laws that he put forth were not of much substance. And however, there is one in particular that I did like, which was about the insurance for certain military personnel, which would give the National Guard, if they're called up to duty, that we would be paying the citizens, we would use tax money to pay their insurance premiums. Well, one of my ideas is that we pay them anyway, because they are, regardless of what you think, while they may only be doing weekend warrior, they are actually our first line of defense of the state. So they're almost always on call, and they're not getting anything for always being on call, right? Because he can get called up anytime by the governor. So I think that we should pay their insurance premiums all throughout the year, regardless of whether they're called up, because they're still on call, and they are at the called really by the governor. So the governor gets to decide, just like he sent them to Texas. And so why are we waiting till he sends them somewhere when they were already on call the whole year? So I think we should be compensating them for their insurance premiums. That's just one thing. There's two or three issues in Virginia Beach, in case you don't know. But if you have never been to Pungo, which you probably have been to Pungo, right? And you've been to Sandbridge, and you know that the water floods, and especially Sandbridge. And there is a proposition to build a road, and I think it's called Sandbridge 7B from Nemo Parkway. And this is a bridge and a road that's being to raise the bridge so that to keep from flooding. But the thing about that is, do you know they've been trying to fix that road for 50 years? 50 years. So now we've had a Republican, right, in office for the last 50 years and didn't do it. So what I'm really asking people of the 19th district is to consider me as a change, because I haven't been to Richmond, and I haven't been there for the last 16 years, which my opponent says she's been there with John Cosgrove for the last 16 years. Well, what have you done for the last 16 years? At least give me a chance, because I don't see anything that's really being done for the citizens of Sandbridge or Virginia Beach that has been of substance that would make a difference in our lives. And so that's why I said for the last 4 years, I was sitting in my living room going, who's in charge? I don't know what's going on. Who's going to help me? And when I found out what they were doing, which was little to nothing to help what's going on actually in Virginia Beach. And while I believe there's been federal dollars, I know, for bridges. And so at the least, there could have been a bridge perhaps built on the road to Sandbridge. But there's nothing that was proposed. There's no money that was allocated for Virginia Beach. I mean, anytime we have bad weather, we're going to have some kind of storm. We always have sand erosion because our life is Virginia Beach. We need the sand at the beach. And so while Sandbridge, they have a replenishment program for every, I think, 4 to 5 years, but it doesn't matter. Every beach in Virginia Beach that needs sand needs to get sand, because what? That's where our money comes from, the beach. People come to Virginia Beach to vacation every summer and even throughout the year. So what do we need to have? Sand on the beach. And I don't think the citizens of Sandbridge should really, because they have an extra tax that they pay so they can have the sand replenishment. But I don't think that cost should be put on them alone. So those are two things. And if you haven't heard about the wind farm, there's going to be a wind farm off the coast of North Carolina in Kitty Hawk. It's called the Kitty Hawk Project, I think, but it's Avangrid. I spoke to Avangrid briefly and listened to their presentation to City Council, Virginia Beach City Council. And they said they would contact me whenever they're giving these briefings in Virginia Beach, Sandbridge, wherever they're going to engage the community. They have not called me today. I had said to Sandbridge that I think they were trying to, work with us. But what I believe now is that they're not trying to work with us. They have a problem with transparency. And I think this is a company that we need to watch. So while I'm all for different ways to create energy other than coal and gas, alternate means, I have solar panels on my roof. I drive an electric car. So I think that's helpful for the environment. And I think the wind farm would be helpful to the environment. However, when they talk about burying the cables and bringing the hookup to Sandbridge, I'm not necessarily in agreement because I haven't really seen a very good way of how they're going to keep people safe, because those cables can create magnetic force. And as a nurse, if you have something like a defibrillator or a some other kind of electronic device, you can, there's numerous devices that people can have installed to their heart, and this could affect them. So it's not like something we just want to do willy-nilly, and we certainly want to keep our citizens safe as we look forward to how this wind farm and Avangard will approach. But we need to make sure that they are doing this safely. And right now, I don't see that, nor do I see the transparency that we should be hearing about the way they're going about things. There's also a proposed battery storage plant in SeaTac, which I don't know if you've heard about it,
Only
but
once I heard about it once.
we will discuss planning meeting and city council in October. So we're looking to see what's going on with that. But if you, it sounded like it was far away from the houses that are on Beautiful Street, but I went down there myself, and really it's, I don't know, it's I'll call it a stone's throw, but it's a little close to these houses. And if there's any kind of accident or problem, then it could affect those residents. In addition, it's also close to a graveyard. So there's so many questions. And actually, there's so many other places in Virginia Beach that storage plant, even though there are other storage plants already, storage battery plants in Virginia Beach already, I don't think that plant should be in a residential area. And certainly the SeaTac residents, which I'm a resident of SeaTac, we don't want the plant that close to the houses in SeaTac. And so those are some of the things that as you can see, I'm passionate about
Well, I appreciate
right
that.
now. Yeah. And all I'm saying is they've had a hand on this thing for 50 years. And I'm just asking for an opportunity to give me a chance to see if I can do something for the citizens of Virginia Beach and Chesapeake that hasn't been done before. And it doesn't look like there was much done in the last 16 years for Virginia Beach and Chesapeake. One thing I do agree, and the citizens, of course, I'm going to listen to what citizens want to do, but there's already been legislation about how we elect officials, and the people should be elected. Like Virginia Beach has gotten the 10-1 system. Right now, Chesapeake has a totally at-large system, which to me is a little bit unfair for the people who live in precincts like Bethel and Bell's Mill, because nobody from those areas, which are two of the largest areas in Chesapeake, are on the city council. So I think it's important for area uh, for council members to be elected from areas in the city, so they have a group of people that they represent, and they are beholding to those constituents, and their members and citizens know who's their elected official is and who's going to be fighting for them. And I think that's important thing to do.
Thank you so much, Ms. Payne,
For
for being able to speak to all that for both Chesapeake and Virginia Beach, and certain sections in Virginia Beach that your advocacy is really needed for in these moments. So I'm glad you were able to speak on some important issues. I definitely want to keep hearing more from you over the next couple of weeks as we lead up to Election Day. And at least at the moment, though, I will unmute the TV. We'll bring back on the debate, and next commercial, we'll continue this discussion.
Okay, thank you.
Companies, including the ones that I've built.
They appear very animated at the moment.
CEO in the White House to get that done.
who runs the state at that point. Yes, go ahead.
You didn't ask the only guy that's going to check. If you have energy questions, you don't ask anything. But I'm just going to say right now, when you say nobody else has done it, the energy plans that have all been announced in the last month by these other folks on stage, we're already doing it in North Dakota. The border plans that we're talking about, we've got troops down at the border flying helicopter missions from North Dakota, from San Diego to the Gulf Coast, trying to stop transnational criminal organizations from inflicting the invasion and the mass casualties in our state. And on the energy policy, we're already
There's an
doing it.
invasion of North Dakota. I didn't hear about that.
Was leading the charge. We won the battle to get the Biden administration, who was ignoring the law. They were the first administration since Truman that wasn't holding the quarterly required lease sales, and we won that in federal court. Notice, we won that in federal court. We're fighting the Biden administration on 20 fronts. To say that no one's fighting the big fights, just look at the record of what we're doing right now. Energy, economy, national security have been talking about it since day one, and now finally good, we're having a conversation about it, but we got the answer in North Dakota.
Governor Bergen, let's talk big government. This question's for you. Big government keeps getting bigger.
What does that mean? What does big government mean?
Have been created by the government. Governor Bergen, you say you want to shrink the size of government, but it's been a century since any president has done that. Why are you really different?
Well, because we've done it in North Dakota. When I took office, we shrunk the state budget general fund by 27% in the first 4 months I was office, and all the trains kept running on time. Why? Because we had a business leader that was actually there. Inside of every government job, there's 10 or 20% of mind-numbing, soul-sucking work that even the state and federal employees don't want to do, and you can engineer that work out of the job. That would free up right there 20% of 2 million civilian employees. And by the way, we've got 10 million jobs open. They have plenty to do, and they could be generating taxes instead of being paid by taxes. This is totally possible to do it if you have somebody that understands. Because having worked in technology for 30 years, everything we had to do was to be better, faster, and cheaper the next day. That's what we can do in government. That's what we're doing in North Dakota.
All right, Governor DeSantis. I want to ask you about something that I think is on a lot of Republicans' minds. This election could come down to less than 50,000 votes in 3 states.
Yeah.
Abortion was on the ballot
The problem
in
is the
6 states in
electoral college.
2022. Republicans lost all of them. Next year, abortion will likely be on the ballot in Arizona. That is a must-win state. Governor DeSantis, how are you going to win over independent, pro-choice voters in Arizona?
Same way we did in Florida. We won the greatest Republican victory in a governor's race in the history of the state, over 1.5 million votes. We were winning places like Miami-Dade County, Palm Beach, that nobody thought was possible because we were leading with purpose and conviction. I reject this idea that pro-lifers are to blame for midterm defeats. I think there's other reasons for that. The former president, he's missing in action tonight. He's had a lot to say about that. He should be here explaining his comments to try to say that pro-life protections are somehow a terrible thing. I want him to look into the eyes and tell people who've been fighting this fight for a long time. My wife and I earlier today were at the gravesite of President and Mrs. Reagan, and I noticed that there was a quote where it says, every single person has purpose and worth. We're better off when everybody counts. And I think we should stand for what we believe in. I think we should hold the Democrats accountable for their extremism, supporting abortion all the way up until the moment of birth. That is infanticide, and that is wrong.
Governor Christie, do you think Governor Christie, do you think that Republicans can do that in Arizona if this referendum is on the ballot there?
Yeah, because I did it in New Jersey. It's
What did
Then
you
why
do
are all
with
these
it?
other states losing?
well, because they don't have leaders in those states who are leading the fight the way it should be led. And in fact, look, I was governor here of the only blue state that's represented up here. This is where the fight is really tough for Republicans, and those are the states that we're going to have to try to win if we're going to win the White House back. And what we did was 14 times, Dana, in 8 years, I vetoed Planned Parenthood funding. 14 times. No one else gets it that much. The Democrats just kept sending it to me, and I kept saying no because I believe in life, but I also believe in states' rights. And I think we fought hard against Roe versus Wade for decades to say that states should make these decisions. So we're going to have those fights in the states. But what you need is a leader who can talk to people and make them understand that if you're pro-life, you have to be pro-life for the entire life, not just the 9 months in the womb. And we talked a lot about fentanyl tonight.
Not many Republicans are going to mention that exact sentence.
But we need to make sure that for the drug-addicted 16-year-old on the floor of the county lockup, her life is precious too. And we need to be providing treatment to cure this as a disease that it is. If you're pro-life, you got to be pro-life for the
Decent
entire
policy
life.
point.
We start talking like that, they're going to do what I did in the blue state, which was get reelected with 61% of the vote and won 70% of independents and 51% of Latinos because I told them the truth from my heart.
Thank you. Vice President Pence, the latest Univision poll found that 73% of Latino voters think the Republican Party doesn't care about or is being hostile toward them, the Hispanic community. Only Governor DeSantis has translated his campaign into Spanish. How will you reach out to Latino voters?
Well, I promise you that we're going to continue to build bridges to every community in this country. And I'm incredibly proud of that.
So you literally want to shut off the
on
country
Capitol Hill to help
from
get that bill
Latinos.
passed into law. The largest tax cut in American history. We saw literally the lowest unemployment ever recorded for Hispanic Americans, the lowest unemployment ever recorded for African Americans, 50-year low for women. So I think the President of the United States needs to be a champion for the American dream for every American. It begins with the unborn and the aged and the infirm. And it begins with every ethnic group in this country. And I promise you, if I'm President of the United States, I'll be a champion. I'll be a champion for the American dream, for Hispanic Americans and for every American.
What do you want to deny me
Yes, there's no doubt that if you lead by example, it's the best way to get the job done. If you look at my office in the Senate, my chief of staff is the only Hispanic female chief of staff in the Senate. I hired her because she was the best, highest qualified person we have. What we need are leaders who lead by example. And I will simply say, I would love to finish my conversation with Nikki as it relates to the job that needs to get done. Nikki offered a 10% gas tax increase in South Carolina. Talk about someone who has never seen a federal dollar she doesn't like.
It's interesting that she said that she
However, there is one in particular that I did.
UN ambassador.
But
you literally
increased it in the state.
$50,000 on the curtains and a $15 million subsidized location. Next.
You got bad information. First of all, I fought the gas tax in South Carolina multiple times against the establishment.
Just go to YouTube.
Against the establishment.
Just go to
And you
YouTube
want to
and
know
check
what
this
that
out.
10 cent was? When they wouldn't pass the gas tax, the establishment, the companies wanted me to do it so much that I said the only way I will
Here's what you have to
if
do.
you
All
will
you
give
have
us
to do-
three.
all you have to do is go
If you
watch
will give-
Nikki Haley on YouTube.
Yeah.
If you will give me 3 times the deduction in income tax, then I will look at your gas
Well, you
tax.
said
which is
yes.
why it didn't happen.
Exactly, Ron.
Secondly, on the 50 million.
Why are they fighting each other? They're both from South Carolina.
Do your homework, Tim, because Obama bought those curtains.
Did you send them back?
It's in the
Did you
press.
send them back?
It's the State
Did
Department.
you send them
Did
back?
you send them back? You're the one that works in Congress.
Oh my gosh.
You get
You don't know on your curtains.
Why are they
I said
hitting
it
each
before
other?
I even showed up at the residence. You are scrapping. You are scrapping. You know,
I have a feeling they disliked each other prior to tonight's debate.
And not intend to go ahead like this. In fact, we're about to take a commercial break. We'll have more of the second Republican debate live from the Reagan Presidential Library in just a few moments.
All right, Ms. Payne, they're going to commercial again. I will admit that the program is only saying that it's listed for about another 8 or so minutes. So we probably got a minute or 2 minutes here. How about another delving into your campaign at the moment? If you would, when did you decide you wanted to start to run? Give me a second. I think you're muted.
When did I decide to run? Was that your question?
Yes. When did you decide, you know what? I want to run for state senate of Virginia.
Okay. So I'm trying to think. I'll say last year, in 2022, summer 2022, I had gone to a convention in I had gone to a convention in in Orlando with a sorority that I'm a part of, and the vice president came. And of course, we're saying, okay, what can we do to help you as the vice president? She said, go home and run for office. And it was something in the back of my mind, but nothing I really thought seriously about. And then what happened is I kept thinking about it and saying, well, okay, let me go home and see what's going on with the Democratic Party and what their plan was, because I knew that in 2022 we were getting redistricted the entire Virginia, and the General Assembly was going to be overturned. So I decided to find out who was running, and I went through some of the people who were known Democrats, some people who worked with the Democratic Party in Virginia Beach, and I could not get an answer for who was running for District 19 Senate seat. And so I decided, well, I will run for that seat. And I began the process and talking to my friends and family about running for Senate. I had not done very much. I did a lot of studying about what to do, how to do it, and how to get started. But as far as getting elected and doing the whole campaign thing, I really did not have a clue. So I spent a lot of time educating myself on the process. And then I was introduced to someone on the Senate caucus, and they began to help lead me through the process after I had declared my candidacy in January. And then that's when I was really in it. But the summer of 2022. And what I'll tell you is that's not soon enough. You should start at least a year ahead of time, and maybe 2 years ahead of time, before you decide to seek an office, especially I think a state office. Local office, you probably have a little more time. But really, if you want to run for something and get elected for 2024, you should already have your committee and everything done.
Good. It's important to have a great infrastructure. I'm glad you're able to get out ahead. I'm glad you're able to research. You said you just discussed with another person who's in the caucus of the state Senate. So it's like you're going into this with a good deal of help. I like hearing that because I would like to see your campaign thrive and be very competitive going into November. Are there any continued challenges that you're experiencing? Perhaps we can take this moment or two to give the viewers here the last little bits of information to find out more about your campaign. Where to go website wise and stuff like that.
Okay, so I'm on Facebook, Twitter, and my website is MyraPayneVASenate.com. And my website, well, that's my website. And then, of course, I'm on Facebook and Instagram as well. Myra Payne for VA Senate.
All right. Have any links of where we might be able to donate?
Yes. So if you go to my website, you should be able to donate. It has a donation link on the website.
Cool.
Yeah.
I'm going to want everyone who is to watch SchezzWho now, who will watch this video in the future, to look up those sites, research the positions of Ms. Payne, and realize that she's going to be a great advocate for you in the state Senate of Virginia. Now we're getting close to the last few minutes. I'm going to hit unmute on this television and see if the Republican debate can close out with that same fervor that they've had all night. Let's see what they got.
Thank you.
Senator DeSantis, in order to try to beat President Trump, who has a commanding and enduring lead in this race.
So polls don't elect presidents, voters elect presidents. Right. And we're going to take the case of the people in these early states. We're going to do the state-by-state direction. And why? Because as Reagan said in his day, this is our time for choosing. We are not getting a
second person to say time for choosing.
Republicans have lost 3 straight elections in a row, We were supposed to have a red wave with inflation at 9%. It crashed and burned. Not in Florida, it didn't. We delivered it in Florida. And so we've got to choose right. We've got to win. We need somebody that's going to be able to serve 2 terms. So in January of 2023, they'll be able to address the nation saying, we turned the economy around. We secured the
We've already
border,
had January
and we fended off the threat
2023.
from
Maybe he
communist
meant
China. As your president, I will get that job
2025.
done.
I believe I did see you write something. Governor Christie, I believe, excuse me, Governor Christie, I believe I did see you write something on the card.
No, but I'll certainly tell you. Look, I think I've been the only one on this stage who's been clear about this. I vote Donald Trump off the island right now. And the reason I vote him off the island.
Vote him off the island.
No, because you know what? Every person on this stage has shown the respect for Republican voters to come here to express their views honestly, candidly, and directly, and to take your questions honestly. I have respect for every man and woman on this stage because if I put your hand down for a second, would you? I still got time, dude. So
He said,
here, look, this guy has not only divided our party, he's divided families all over this country. He's divided friends all over this country. I've spoken to people, and I know everyone else has, who have sat at Thanksgiving dinner or at a birthday party and can't have a conversation anymore if they disagree with Donald Trump. He needs to be voted off the island, and he needs to be taken out of this process.
15 seconds.
Look, I have a different view on this. I think Trump was an excellent president, but the America First agenda does not belong to one man. It does not belong to Donald Trump. It doesn't belong to me.
This is very
It
important
belongs to
because
you.
Vivek is
the
trying to
people
seem
of
like
this
the
country.
biggest
And
Trump
the
fan,
question is, who's going to unite
but he's
this
also
country
running
and take
against
the
them. So
America
we need to
First
somehow
agenda
come off
to the next level?
like he's
When we rallied
significantly
behind the
different
cry
than
to
the
make
guy he's
America
otherwise
great again,
hyping.
we did not just hunger for a single man. We hungered for the unapologetic pursuit of excellence. So yes, I will respect Donald Trump and his legacy because it's the right thing to do.
15 seconds and possibly his 15 minutes are up
to take
too.
the America First agenda to the next level, and that will take a different generation.
Does it? I repeat, that does it. For the second Republican primary debate live from the Long Reign Presidential Library.
Thank you to all the candidates. We've loved having you here tonight, and we will see you out on the campaign trail. Have a great evening. Thank you for joining us, everyone. Good night.
Well, that completes the debate. They're doing their handshakes. Ms. Payne, would you like a final word or two for viewers here before we head off into the night?
I would just like to say good night, everybody, but don't forget to vote. Early voting until November the 4th, and then the election is November the 7th. Thanks so much.
Exactly. Thank you for hopping on and providing some commentary. I want people to look up Ms. Payne's candidacy. Early voting, as she said, is already taking place. Consider her in the future. And I'm going to say good night as well. This has been the SchezzWho Show, our 4th episode, as we provided some commentary about this great debate that we saw on television. Hope you guys have a great night and an upcoming great weekend. Catch you guys next time.